Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending December 18th City Council meeting. On behalf of Mayor Nystrom, who I just received a text, it was on his way. He's going to be a little late. You know he works for UPS, and this is a tough time of the year for those people. So I would like to ask all those who can to please stand, and we'll be led in prayer by Alderman Joe DeLucia.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon the members of this council as we assemble here in this chamber to conduct the ongoing business of our city. With your guidance, we will strive to ensure that all our decisions are for the common good, and your inspiration instill respect, compassion, thoughtfulness in all our deliberations. Give us the strength and wisdom to lead by example as the people's representative, and that peace and harmony will mark all our proceedings and keep us faithful to the trust placed in us by the citizens of your community. Amen.
Amen. Joanne Philbrook will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, tonight's the second meeting of the City Council, and we will have a citizen comment on general issues. Anybody having any issues that they'd like to bring to the council? This will be a 30-minute total, and you do have 3 minutes. And we do have a few people signed up, so I'll go through that list first, and then we'll go to anyone else if time's remaining. We have Mr. Rodney Bowie, please.
Good evening. Rodney Bowie, 62 Roosevelt Avenue. I see a few new faces here. Congratulations. I appreciate your help. Many of you have heard my spiel before. I was looking through last year's budget, and I noted that our debt service is $5 million that we constantly dole out every single year for budget items like we passed this past year. I wasn't too happy about those things passing. I don't like indebtedness. I don't like paying 2% on top of the bills. A lot of things that were in our session last year that we passed were items that should have been included in our regular budget. And until you folks, because you're in charge now, until you folks can understand that if you keep on adding indebtedness to the things that we do, you're on a downhill run with a good tailwind. The governor's trying to balance these things out today, and he's going to borrow. The thing is, sooner or later, you've got to take a look at what you're spending it on and how much you're spending. If you can't afford it, don't get it. Quite frankly, if you can't afford it, don't get it. And that's us. We need to be able to buy a fire truck on a regular budget if we have to. If we've got 20 fire trucks, maybe we've got to replace one a year. But to lump them all together and put it out on a bond issue, no. No, that is the wrong way to do it, because it's a bond issue plus 2%. And I have all my life dedicated myself to not having any debt. And at my particular age, 76, I don't have any debt. And that's the way to do it.
Thank you, sir. Patrick McMahon.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Sir, your name and address, please.
Patrick McMahon. I'm the CEO of the Connecticut Main Street Center, and I'm here this evening to support the efforts of the Women's Institute on the Reed and Hughes building. I have to make a confession that I am from Windsor and have traveled through this great city hundreds of times on my way to Rhode Island, and I've never actually stopped. Today, I spent several hours walking around your downtown, and what you have is absolutely, truly stunning and amazing. It is a treasure that more folks around the state of Connecticut and throughout the region need to discover. The walkability, the historic buildings, it is a tremendous asset. And the Reed and Hughes building is really critical because it is a continuous group of storefronts. It would bring additional residential housing into your downtown area. Cities like Norwich, there's a trend across the country that mid-sized cities are now taking off because of millennials, because of Generation Z, which is behind the millennials, as well as empty nesters. They want to be in these incredible walkable locations like Norwich downtown. You can look at the statistics. There's a 2017 global trend survey by an organization by the name of Puma that mentions that very trend. So what the Women's Institute with Betsy Crum and her associates are working on today is going to be of a major impact going forward for the community. Having housing downtown is feet on the street. It is folks that will go and spend money in the local businesses. I spent time this evening with Angela from the Chamber of Commerce, hearing all about the exciting different events that you have each year and the ways you're trying to bring more people downtown. So I would highly recommend you do what you can to help the Women's Institute to bring that project to fruition. Demolishing that building would leave a tremendous hole in your street front, and I highly encourage you to assist them going forward. Now, I promise from the Connecticut Main Street Center's standpoint that we will do what we can to promote the assets that you have in this great city, as well as to return and see all the different things in your brochure here. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Please forgive me if I make a mistake, but Rebecca Malucci?
My name is Rebecca Malucci. I live at 303 Mohegan Park Road in Norwich, Connecticut. I know this is a moot point. However, I'm really sorry that Malloy did what he did with the budget, and everybody's suffering. I realize every city, every town. But I got to tell you, I have an old car. I got a 2009 Jeep. 5 years ago, I lived in Guilford. I paid less taxes on that car 5 years ago in Guilford than I am paying now. And now you're going to send out an additional bill for taxes? Really? Not for anything. I'm on a fixed income. No, I needed a new roof. I had to sharpen my pencil and redo my budget. Got a new roof. What happens? They raise my taxes on my house because I put a new roof on it. I guess you're supposed to live with leaks and trip over buckets. I guess that's what you do. I don't know. However, now once again, I had to put the pencil to the paper and do a new budget. Well, now another bill, I guess another budget. It's difficult. It is very difficult. You got over 200 houses for sale in Norwich. I wonder why. Maybe because they can't afford the taxes? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous that you're going to reach in and pick our pockets. Everybody here, our pockets for the money. How about sharpening your pencil? Do another budget. I have to. Believe me, I would love to get a job, but nobody wants to hire a 68-year-old woman. It just doesn't happen. So I don't know where I'm supposed to get the money. I'm supposed to get it from you? Get it from somebody here? Where do I get the money? Really? You shouldn't pick our pockets. I think it's very wrong. I think on every level, it's very wrong.
Thank you, ma'am. The next name I can't make out at all. It looks like Stephen Grippo. Stephen Grippo? Marvin Ceruto.
Good evening. Marvin Ceruto, 100 Star Street, Norwich, Connecticut, United States of America. I just have a request that when the language to a resolution or an ordinance is changed the night of a meeting, that you try to refrain from voting on that the night of the meeting without any public input. In the event that it's necessary, I would encourage some thorough discussion and explanation. And also, I have been requested to ask you to make sure you speak into your microphones. Thank you very much. I wish you all the best. Welcome aboard and welcome back.
Thank you, sir. There's no one else signed up, but is there anybody else in the audience who would like to address the city council? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Maria Joliker. I live at 161 Broadway, Norwich, Connecticut. I'm in favor of Dale's position for the Reed and Hughes building. For historic preservation purposes and for bringing usage for the building, I'm hoping that we get started developing the building and not delaying it any longer. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else wishing to bring any issues to the city council? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Greg Grippo, not Stephen. I don't know who Stephen is, but I didn't sign up.
Thank you, sir.
But 209 Boswell Avenue. How many times have we heard the public mantra, see something, say something? The topic of blight remains a top priority for the city of Norwich. I called this to the attention of City Council on May 15th of this year with a short 5-page study of the Board of Review Dangerous Buildings Committee, aka Blight Department. In this particular study, I chose 3 properties within blocks of my home. 62 North Main Street, formerly known as the Sanctuary of Love. 109 Baltic Street, a house that has been boarded for as long as the 20 years that I've lived here. And finally, one being a city-owned property, 13 Baltic Street, currently in a state of neglect and decay with bulk waste now collecting on site. This study, which revealed failings in procedural process and basic ineffectiveness, should have prompted discussion and resolution. Was there discussion? Undoubtedly, yes. Was there any resolution? Yes. Because the idea of a resolution for the Blight Department is to place my property on the blight list within 2 months. For no less than a missing garage door, mind you, a garage door. Does the Blight Department notify me that my property is on the blight list? It would appear the answer is no. Does the Blight Department investigate beforehand if I have a building permit in place to rectify my missing garage door? Again, it appears no. I wonder how many other people on the blight list have active building permits. Again, a systems problem, a lack of procedure, more importantly, a lack of common courtesy. Ironically, when I registered an online complaint concerning a city-owned property, 13 Baltic Street, it took 7 months before it made the blight list. Mine only took 2 months. It would have been 1 month, but the department took a month off. So is this how the city of Norwich operates? Is this how the city government of Norwich treats its citizens and small businesses when they register a legitimate complaint by being vindictive? Is this how leadership is held to a higher standard of accountability? I respectfully ask for an explanatory response at a later time. And I would like to give some handouts.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to bring any issues before the City Council? Any others? Seeing none, I call this closed. Petitions and communications.
Number 1, report from the Women's Institute regarding 201 Main Street, Reed and Hughes Building.
Okay, we do have some people here from the Women's Institute. I'd like to call them up if they wish.
Good evening. Hi.
Thank you.
My name is Betsy Crum. I am the Executive Director of the Women's Institute. We're at 75 Charter Oak Avenue in Hartford. And with me tonight is Christine Rogers, who's the Senior Development Manager, and she is the Project Manager on the Reed and Hughes property. So I wanted you to meet her, and she's going to give part of the update.
Okay.
I'm assuming most of you kind of know the history and background with the Reed and Hughes. I can go into it, but I know there's some of you who are new. But we were brought in, I'd say approximately a year or so ago, by both Mr. McMahon's predecessor at the Connecticut Main Street and the architect that was working here to look at the Reed and Hughes property, and determined at that time that there was a reasonable path forward to try to save and redevelop the building in the way that was envisioned by Main Street and the work that they did. We have had many communications with the town. We've been here before you, and in fact, we're working with the state and a number of other folks to try to come up with a proposal. When you went out for an RFP, John, I forget how long ago it was maybe last May or so, an RFP to see if there were any proposals. We responded to that, and we're the only respondent, as it turned out, and signed a development agreement with you all back in August. That was about 3 months ago, a little over 3 months ago. And so I wanted to give you a kind of an update on where we are, and we've had many successes, considerable achievements toward the goal, but have kind of hit a little bit of a hiccup as well that I wanted to update you on and make perhaps a request of you. So we signed our development agreement with the town, and in that town we were given 90 days to identify financing for the stabilization phase of this development. And that was estimated after a lot of negotiations back and forth with the town to be somewhere between somewhere around $450,000 to stabilize this building and to keep it stable for the period it would take to assemble the financing to complete it. We set about trying to identify those funds, and actually were able to be very successful in receiving a commitment for $500,000 from the Local Initiative Support Corporation, and that included $50,000 in soft financing from the Connecticut Main Street program and a $450,000 loan from Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC. They're a national organization that works to stabilize local communities and neighborhoods, which is excellent. I mean, it was a huge acknowledgement of the value of this project, the value that we could potentially bring to it. We also, in those 3 months, there were a couple of barriers that we had identified with the project. One was that the current zoning did not enable us to do the mixed-use development that we were looking to do with the commercial first floor and residential in the back and upstairs. We were successful in getting those zoning variances back in November, I believe, October, November. So working with the town, that went really well. We did survey and title work, which we think have resolved some concerns we had about the title. And we've approached insurers and our contractor about undertaking the work as soon as we have the go-ahead to get going. The current challenge that we face, and I've talked with John about it, and I think he's communicated with you, the financing that we've identified has been not in the form of a grant, but in the form of a loan. And that loan, which is not uncommon in redevelopment and pre-development funding. The problem is that the sort of notoriety of this project and the long-term concern about the physical stability of the project has resulted in my own board of directors getting nervous about the risk that we would take on if we closed on a $500,000 loan on a building that is owned by the town, frankly, at this point, and that has there's some concern that we would get into it and could get very far into it financially, only to find that the building was ultimately not savable. We have opinions from architects and engineers that think that it is, but there's also been a lot of publicity about the instability of the building, and I think that, and combined with the fact that the lender would look to us as full recourse for this $500,000, and the fact that it's $500,000, and when we started the day it was about half of that, I think have all combined to make my own board of directors hesitant to take on something that risky. So they sort of gave me two charges. One was to go back to the funders and to go back to LISC and potentially look to other funders to see whether they would make a greater portion of that loan forgivable, non-recourse. I've gone back to LISC, in fact, had a meeting as recently as last week with them to ask this question. I asked this question actually as soon as the board came up with it. They are considering it, but their funding is borrowed money themselves. They borrow it, they turn around and lend it to us. So it's unlikely, although Main Street has offered to at least look and see whether they can do any more. And then Christina's been working on a lot of other financing sources that she can also bring you up to speed on.
Hi, everybody. As Betsy said, my name is Christine Rogers, and I'm the Senior Project Manager for the Reed and Hughes project. And when I look at the building, I see potential. And part of that is the role of a developer, is to imagine what could be. And for LISC, a national organization, to also look at the project and in 90 days to issue a $450,000 commitment means that there are other folks that see the potential in the project. Before I was at the Women's Institute, I was with the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston, and as a banker, I know the due diligence that LISC had to do to make that commitment. I can understand the board's position and the concerns about the recourse financing, and so what I've been doing during this 30-day extension is looking at other sources of funding that would be grant funding. Now, grant funding is fantastic, but it comes in smaller increments. So we've been putting in grant applications for $15,000, $50,000. It takes more time than the commitment that Betsy has from LISC. And so we have some private foundation money out. We've got a request to the 1772 Foundation. We're working with the Norwich CDC on the code correction funding, with the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation, with the Housing Ministries of New England, with Capital for Change, which is a CDFI. So all of these different resources have funding available, but they're in smaller increments than the $450,000 commitment from LISC. So it will take time both to put the applications in as well as to get answers back from this myriad of state, local, and private foundations.
Thanks. You know, the other thing that we found in going after the nice thing about going to LISC was we have a relationship with them, and they were willing to lend this money kind of on our own recognizance and our own reputation and the value of this project. Going with these other programs, for instance, the Norwich Community Development Corporation, which we've had multiple conversations with, they don't really have a program that fits with the stabilization of the Reed and Hughes. They have a program that allows for code corrections. They have a revolving loan fund that allows other kinds of redevelopment, but they don't. But this is sort of a square peg trying to fit into a round hole, and so to approach them, we actually would need to ask for a waiver of their standard programmatic requirements, which we can do, but that requires sitting down with their board and asking for that waiver, getting the waiver, and then proceeding with the application to them. The same thing is true with the Connecticut Trust for Historic Preservation. They have a program that's a bridge loan that bridges the period between when you get your tax credits, your historic credits, and when the money comes through from them. That's not really what's going on here. This is about stabilizing a building before we can even get to step one on the historic preservation. So all of this is to say that we're kind of faced here. Our 30-day extension is up, I think, Christmas Eve, Sunday. Mm-hmm. And so we're sort of faced with a challenge of not being able to probably have a decision on the recourse or non-recourse, the grant conditions of this loan, which my board is not willing to move ahead on. There's sort of two. I think that's sort of the report piece of it, but there's two options that I guess we would like to ask the council to consider at this point, and I've been sort of charged by my board to come back to you with. One option would be to give us more time to raise more grants, or to get a more significant portion of this $500,000 in the form of soft funds, recoverable grants, forgivable loans, whatever you want to call them. The second option, which we could move forward on tomorrow on the stabilization, would be if the city would consider guaranteeing or somehow a greater level of partnership with the Women's Institute on this stabilization. And that could be a number of things, but I think the easiest thing, and the thing that that my board envisioned, would be something that would, if we move ahead and the building were found to be incapable of being restored, being stabilized, not restored, but being stabilized, that the city would agree to make the Women's Institute whole for whatever funding it had laid out up until that point. I realize this is a big ask, and it's beyond what we had proposed, but it's a way to sort of share in the risk, if you will. And what we're faced with on the risk standpoint, I think, is in a way, we're sort of between a rock and a hard place. We have all of the risk, but the city at this point owns the building, in a way, has owned the building for 20 years, and the deterioration, therefore. To move ahead, I think, on stabilization just feels too risky to do it on our own without the partnership of the town. I certainly don't expect a decision on either of these requests tonight, but I wanted to put them out there, and I asked John if I could have the chance to speak with you about it, just to talk to you about where I think the project still has as good a chance of moving forward as it's ever had, but there's a need for a greater level of partnership, I guess, with the city in terms of the risk of taking on this project, again, either by giving us more time to raise more soft money, or some way to partner on the stabilization phase.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the council? Alderman Brown.
Okay, so if we were to give you an extension, hypothetically, how much time would you request?
I think I'm thinking we would need 2 to 3 months to be able to get in front of all of these various funders and ask them for exceptions to their procedures and so forth, and to cobble. This is really sort of a cobbling together process of multiple smaller grants. So I would think 2 to 3 months would get us to at least to the point where we had a decision from them.
A follow-up question, referring to the second option. Basically, otherwise would be, you're asking us to guarantee the recourse loan?
I'm not actually asking for that. I think what I don't necessarily know the right structure for this, but what I'm asking is to be able to at least to either participate in the guarantee that we give to the recourse loan, or more simply maybe to agree that if it were to be determined by us in partnership with the town officials and so forth that the building could not be salvaged, or it were to fall down, in the course of the renovation, for which we would carry insurance, that the amount of funding that we had put out up until that point, we could be made whole for that. And knowing that there's sort of already existing a $800,000 bond approval anyway, I would imagine that, well, I don't really know if the eventual demolition would be more than that, but that's the concept. I don't really know all the details. There's multiple options that could be considered. It could be a guarantee to us. It could be a guarantee to share in the guarantee on the loan, or it could be what's called a put option, which is where you agree to just take the bill, you give us the building, we work on it, you take it back for the amount specified.
My concern is when you say participate, that realistically a lender would want us to be responsible if it didn't work out. And, it's kind of hard to negotiate when we're only responsible for 40% of the recourse loan, that they would tend to want us to be guaranteeing the full amount.
I'm not so sure. What's complicated about this is that the town owns the building, and that it is also collateral, potentially, and that the recourse is completely to the Women's Institute at this point, but that so the participation could be on a sort of an equal share basis, which would be something that would certainly give my board a lot more comfort than us being 100% out there. So it could be if we've expended, and we will only expend as we go along, right? So the first $50,000 would be non-recourse. That's the funding from the Main Street. And then as we move along, we would start to expend the recourse financing. So if there were another $100,000 put out, we couldn't move any further. The participation might be on a guarantee basis, in an equal level, $50,000 each in that example.
Any others? Alderman Gould?
And where is Mr. Morse in all of this? We've heard about Mr. from New London, who was interesting in partnering with you previously, but you haven't mentioned him tonight.
So Mr. Morse is still willing to be part of this. My goal, his funding level was always at about $200,000, so it was never enough really to do the whole thing. My feeling was that, and he would also obviously want some kind of recourse as well. He would want collateral. His money was never intended to be a grant. It was intended to be an investment into the project for which he wanted a mortgage back to him. And so he could still be potentially part of it, part of this cobbling together scheme that we're trying to do, but his will also be a full recourse type of loan, or it is likely to be. We hadn't really gotten to that level of negotiation. He was looking for a mortgage.
Any others? Alderman DeLucia?
I'll yield to
No, go ahead.
Alderman Gould.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you have a follow-up? I apologize.
Yes, I'll be happy to wait.
Good.
Yeah.
This is my first time, so give me a second. Go ahead.
Are you still intending to make this into veterans housing? And if so, why isn't the Veterans Administration being asked to help out if we're going to be providing homes for homeless veterans?
So one of the options that Christine listed, the Capital for Change, is a $50,000 non-recourse loan that is available from something called the Veterans Affordable Housing Fund, which is a pre-development fund set up to assist housing for veterans. The Veterans Administration doesn't currently have either loan or grant funds for permanent housing. They do have some funding for what they call grant and per diem, which is a transitional housing, which we don't particularly want to do, and then they just fund services. So, but the Veterans Affordable Housing Fund is one of those options that we're seeking currently.
Thank you.
All set. Alderman DeLucia.
Thank you. So my first question, forgive me, got a little thing going on here. So my first question is for the three of us who are new to the council this term. What was it that drew you to the Reed and Hughes building?
So it's an interesting question because with all the challenges associated with it, I asked myself that sometimes, and I think first of all, I'm a developer, and so I'm often drawn to development, but I'm particularly drawn to a city like Norwich that has a downtown that is architecturally beautiful, but it is under-realized. And I think the Reed and Hughes building represents what I think will be a pivotal property. Having a vacant boarded building is one of the easiest ways to kill a downtown. Putting property back on the street and bringing people in to live there who can then walk and shop and, live and be part of the community fulfills my vision, my personal mission. The Women's Institute is a not-for-profit. I'm not sure I mentioned that at the beginning. So the Reed and Hughes property is not going to be a moneymaker particularly. I'm always looking for the building to make enough money to make it worthwhile to do, but I want to see it really make a difference in a community. And it's a beautiful building in spite of, its kind of current condition. It's a very unique historic resource to the community. And I think it needed somebody who had some tenacity and who was willing to kind of get in there and dig in and hang on and work to develop it. The fact that it was brought to us by the architect and by Main Street meant something to me. I saw it as a challenge, but also as an opportunity to do something that could turn the city around. I mean, not that it needs to be turned around, that's not a good way to say it, but that could take that little piece of downtown and make it vibrant.
A follow-up. So have you considered that this may just be too much to bite off? That this building may just not be for you?
You ask such interesting questions. It's a very big picture. Yes, I have considered. This one is on the edge. I mean, there's no question that it's on the edge in its condition. It's on the edge in its financial viability. But I also see a lot of love and passion for this building. I see the folks sitting behind me who just always come and always are looking to see something happen with this building. I see an organization like LISC that says, yeah, we believe in Norwich and we believe in this building and we believe in your ability to transform it. And what I would really like to do is to ideally, and I don't think this is secret, I've talked to John about this a little bit, is if once we stabilize this building, if there are other buildings nearby that we could sort of package up and make a larger development out of it, then it would really have impact and it would be more financially viable. This one can stand alone. It can happen by itself, but I think it could work better and have more impact if there were some other buildings that could also be bundled up with it.
One last question. Have you considered any other sites in the city? I believe that your mission is admirable, and I would love to have your organization here, but I just wonder about this building. So have you considered any other sites in the city?
I haven't yet. I would be happy to, but not at the expense of this building. There's a little bit of passion that I've grown for this building. Christine heard it today, but this is an important property.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold on for others that haven't had a chance to talk. Is there anybody else? Yes, Alderwoman Filbert.
Thank you for your presentation, but I have to be brutally honest and say that I'm quite disturbed that we're at this juncture and we're still not going anywhere. You have clearly stated that your own board of directors considers this a very risky proposition. So you're asking now for us to consider possibly extending it another 2 or 3 months. What happens when another 2 or 3 months goes by and you still don't have the funding? A greater level of partnership. Norwich is in a very precarious fiscal position like many other parts of the state of Connecticut. We don't have any extra money. And what is to say that if we partner with you and guarantee your $450,000, you get into the project, you find out that it's more than you can handle, we're left holding the bag, literally and figuratively. doesn't make me comfortable. The other thing is that I think I speak for myself when I thought that the whole idea behind this project was that the building would be stabilized before winter came. Winter is here. What happens if we give you 2 or 3 months and the 1st of January we have a major snowstorm and the building implodes? Are you going to walk away? If you don't get your partnership, which to me really equates to money, and just clarify for me again, you are a for-profit or a non-profit?
A nonprofit.
You are a non-profit
Correct.
organization. Does that mean then that you will not be paying property taxes?
No, it does not mean that. It will
Okay,
pay
you're not going
property
to be
taxes.
asking for any kind of waivers? You're not going to be asking for any waivers of building permits, inspections?
You know, well,
I'm just trying to get an overview of the whole,
yeah. No, I understand.
what you're asking for, or
I
what you're
understand.
looking for.
And to clarify, we're not, in the idea of, but just to be, I understand where you're coming from, I think, on all of these, but just to be clear, we're not asking for money in terms of partnership. We're asking for a guarantee, which it would only be, I know, I just want to be very clear. We're not asking for cash. We're asking for the promise if we are unable to move forward. That's just one ask that we're asking. The other ask is for more time. Well, I think it's an important distinction. If you want to give us cash, that would be great. But I don't think that's a good ask. So, you know, it's really more that the building is of a condition that frankly you are holding the bag already. You own the building. And so we believe we have every reason to believe we can stabilize it. But there has been a lot of negative talk about the building. And I think honestly, my own board's feeling of the riskiness is much more about the financial risk to the organization of a full recourse loan. If the building can't move forward, we don't have, our means to repay it is therefore gone.
Okay, and a follow-up, if I may, that would be my second.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So, as everyone is well aware, the council did vote to appropriate an $800,000 bond. So, and if somebody can help me out with this, so if we had a partnership and we said, okay, we will guarantee, and we guarantee $100,000, $200,000, things don't work out and the project ends. So then we're on the hook for the $200,000 for the recourse, and then we're on the hook for the $800,000 for the demolition. So now we're up to $1 million. Am I correct in that?
That's how I look at it.
It's a simple question, yes or no is what, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful. In theory, okay.
In theory, yeah. I mean, I think, well, I can't get into, I don't understand all the details, but it would depend on what the cost of the demolition was, frankly.
All right, thank you.
So there was one other point you made that I wanted to respond to. Oh, the winter piece of it. That there's really nothing to say about that. It's winter, you know, we're here in December. But the original agreement, even if everything had moved forward and I could start construction tomorrow, we're still in winter. You know, there's the timing of the RFP and the way the development agreement was structured. There was no way to avoid coming into another winter.
Thank you.
So,
Ma'am.
Thank you so much, and I do appreciate your mission and support it. Just another note of history for us folks who weren't here. Was it the building that drew you to want to expand to Norwich, or did you see potential in Norwich to build on your mission? So was it just the building where you wanted to expand?
well,
Or did you see potential in the city of Norwich to
I think there's
perpetuate your mission?
potential in the city of Norwich to do more. We are all sort of up and down the eastern part of the state right now. We have a development and construction right now in Killingly, a former mill building. We have a property in Willimantic that is very similar in size and scale and condition, frankly, to the Reed and Hughes. We have an option on a property up in Putnam. And so we've really kind of been expanding. The Women's Institute is able to work anywhere by our mission in Connecticut and Massachusetts. And in Connecticut, there's kind of a dearth of nonprofit developers working in eastern Connecticut. So from a strategic standpoint and from a mission standpoint, I think there's opportunity in this part of the state. And, you know, we see a lot of, we like to repurpose older buildings. That's not a mission in and of itself. That's a tool by which we achieve our mission. Old schools, old mills, old department stores.
Thank you.
Please. I just have a couple of things. From the beginning of the project with the Reed and Hughes, and I've been sitting on the council for a little while, and I was always in favor for the longest time at saving the building. And then there came a point where I said, okay, listening to the experts, take the building down. And this is more of a comment versus a question I have, but I do have a question. The thing I feel right now is we could have torn this building down over the summer. We wouldn't be facing this issue that we have right now. I went out on a limb with many of my other fellow council persons and said, let's give it a chance, especially when the veteran component came in. I represent Norwich as veterans in the state, and I felt, and as a veteran, I felt it was extremely important to provide our homeless vets, especially women homeless vets, which are a growing number, with housing. So I supported saving the building, much to the chagrin of many citizens who contacted me and said I was crazy and this was a horrible idea. Now I have to consider this. You need another 2 to 3 months. I also was under the impression that the building would have been stabilized before the winter months. This was, I thought, part of the first presentation months and months ago. That hasn't happened. We have buildings next to that being adversely affected. We have damage being done to businesses thriving and trying to continue to thrive, but are throwing money at leaks and damages to their property. Now you come and ask for another 2 to 3 months, which puts us into March, possibly as far as April. There's no guarantee you're going to do any work at all on it. We as the city have boarded it up. Now you want us to come into a partnership, and I have to be completely honest with you. As far as I can only speak for myself, I will never support a partnership at this point. I opened a business in Norwich many years ago with some partners, and we did not come to the city and ask them to guarantee us, and we opened a building that was 50 years, almost 25 years boarded up, and it was totally gutted, redone, had to put metal girders in and all this sprinkler. I mean, the city was not kind, and forced my business partners, fortunately, were able to obtain the funding to do this, but we did not come to the city asking them to guarantee us anything. And I'm a little upset that there is a possibility that this council could decide to go into a partnership and guarantee you money on a project that is your project. You came to us, you wanted to do this, we said okay. I went and said, fine, let's go ahead and support it, because I do remember the wrecking ball being in front of the Warregan building, and on the 11th hour, we were able to save that building. And I was hoping that this would be the same with the Reed and Hughes. But now I have to think about the businesses adjoining the Reed and Hughes building, and they are adversely suffering. And you're asking for another 2 to 3 months and possible assistance. And again, with Alderwoman Philbrick, I agree. We give you $200,000-300,000. Maybe we even bite off the whole 400, and you walk away, and then we still have to tear the building down, which is could cost more than $800,000. We don't know. And we have to ask our other tenants, the other people who've invested in our city, hang in there. I know your building's being damaged, but we'll get to it eventually. I don't know if I have lost my patience, ma'am. I'll be honest with you. And I totally support your mission. I completely understand what you do for the people through your programs. I don't know if Norwich is that particular building. Now listen, I want to offer you tons of other empty buildings downtown if you want to jump on one of those. But my patience has run the full level of gamut here, so I just wanted to let you know that.
Excuse me, but did you have a question?
No, I said it was more of a comment.
Yeah, Alderman Browning.
My last question of the evening.
I did tell.
The amount of money involved in the stabilization, let's call it $500,000, 400,000, somewhere there, which is about 8 to 10% of the total cost of doing the project. And if you're changing the financing, if the financing is changed on this portion, wouldn't that mean that the financing would be changed on the remaining 90%, that there's an increased incentive to come back and say, okay, we're going to get something that's not just a loan, but you need a guarantor, we need some additional thing. I mean, if you're having this problem getting up to the first 500,000, wouldn't it make it more likely that it would change the terrain on the next 5 million?
If I understand your question right, no, I don't think it would make any change to that.
It would be easier to raise money on the next 5 million?
Yes, much easier. Go ahead.
And I think part of the reason is, we do these types of development deals all year long, right? People are used to financing rehabilitation, new construction. Nobody's used to financing, stabilizing a building that's in danger of falling down. There aren't programs out there for that. Banks don't offer loans for it on it. It's this particular stabilization phase that is unusual in a development project like this. And there are no easy financing sources where you can just go off and, pick from Bank A, Bank B, or Bank C for stabilization money. The development money, there are programs for that. That's easier to raise, much easier to raise.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, in fact, I appreciate the council, I appreciate your comments on it, but truthfully, we weren't able to get a signed agreement with the town until about 3 months ago. So I appreciate that you would be impatient, and while it's our project now, it was something that we were brought in to help think about. And so it's not quite the same as a building that we own that we're coming to you about.
Alderman Nash, you mentioned you had a question?
No, I was just bringing you up on someone who had speaking points.
All right. Is there further discussion or questions? Good evening, Betsy.
Hi.
My apology for being late, a little busy. And if this is covered, again, I will keep it brief. The possible loss of federal historic tax credits. Have you commented on that?
I haven't commented on it, but that's a good question. So and I haven't followed the negotiations in the last couple days about the federal budget, but one of the proposals was in one of the House budget was to eliminate the federal historic credits. And that was intended to be one of our sources for this development. However, it's interesting because I mentioned the project that we're doing in Willimantic, which is the same size, scale, cost, and basic financial structure. That actually is not utilizing federal historic taxes, just state historic taxes, and we were able to finance that with a combination of state funding. That more or less the bottom line is the amount that we would lose in federal tax credit can be replaced with state funding.
Thank you. You've given us one example where that is working. Can you cite others that involves your firm?
Where we've used state tax credit, state
Without
historic,
the
and not
historic
federal
tax credits.
Yeah, we do. I mean, federal historic credits is just one of many possible sources of financing for a project like this. It's a natural for something like Reed and Hughes because it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and so it as of right qualifies for these credits. But most of the development that we do, especially in Connecticut, does not use that credit. It uses federal low-income housing tax credits, state grant and loan funds, and sometimes local funds, sometimes the Federal Home Loan Bank of Boston.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for
Appreciate your
thank you
presentation.
for your time. I do understand that this is difficult, and I think we still continue to believe in the project, but especially believe in Norwich. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 2, report from the Commission on the City Plan of the City of Norwich pursuant to Section 8-24 of the General Statutes and Chapter 15, Section 4 of the Norwich City Charter concerning a resolution for the sale of the property at 80 and 68 Broadway.
Entertain a motion to receive. Alderman Nash, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? All those in favor? Alderman Browning, you voting?
I'm in favor.
Okay, thank you. It's unanimous.
Number 3, letter of resignation from Richard C. Benoit from the Harbor Management Commission.
Entertain a motion to receive. Alderman Joan Philbrick, please, and Alderwoman Stephanie Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing none, we'd like to note that we appreciate Mr. Benoit's service in the Harbor Management Commission for many, many years, and are very grateful for all that he has provided our city. All those in favor? Unanimous. Vote 7-0.
City Manager's Report.
Thank you. This is the City Manager's Report for December 18th, 2017. I first want to welcome the City Council to the second official meeting of the new City Council. I hope you all enjoyed the last meeting. I want to thank my assistant, Jackie Barbarossa, City Clerk Betsy Barrett, Bonnie Kuprak for organizing that first meeting. Thank you to all the family members, friends, former mayors, and local dignitaries who attended. Special thanks to Rabbi Rabinowitz for the opening prayer, City Assessor Donna Ralston for singing the national anthem, Norwich Police Color Guard, Police and Fire Chiefs, Norwich Firefighter Chris Page, bagpiper and member of the New London Firefighter Pipe and Drums for your participation in this memorable evening. Thank you to, how do you pronounce that? Le Francois. Floral and gifts for the beautiful flower arrangements, and Norwich Technical School for the delicious treats for the reception. Also, thank you to John Johnson and the building maintenance staff for their assistance for the setup and cleanup of the event. Pension negotiations were held on December 6th and December 13th. A health savings account presentation was held for the Public Works Union on December 14th. The Recreation Department announced their online program registration on December 11th. Residents can now register for current programs from the city's website. The city will be converting to the new and improved website on the evening of December 18th. There was a small setback due to some minor page design issues that have been since corrected. Please check out the new site along with the new boat launch web camera made possible by the Harbor Management Commission. Effective January 2nd, 2018, taxpayers will be able to pay their bills at any People's Bank branch for the months of January and July as long as their bill is current. The tax office will also be using the lockbox system from People's Bank to process payments more quickly. Both of these services will save processing time to allow the city quicker investment of funds, customer convenience, and more efficient service with no additional fees to the city. People's Bank is our treasury management banking partner, which assists the city with its financial goals. And finally, congratulations to Alan Bush from the City Clerk's Office and Joe Cooper from Public Works. Alan is retiring at the end of 12 years of service with the city, and Joe is retiring with 10 years of service. We wish them both well.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager? Yes, Alderwoman Philbrick, please.
Yes, John, can you tell us what savings we might be anticipating with the change in the tax office? I would assume that there would be a reduction in cost for supplies and possibly even a reduction in staffing or a different utilization in staffing?
Actually, the major area will be that we'll be getting funds in quicker. When funds are in quicker, you can invest them in a more speedy manner. So that's the key. The workload, they still have to be processed when they come back to the city. It's just that the time and element of the deposit is quicker. So that's the major savings, which
Right,
is
but if-
investment.
But if people are going to pay People's Bank to pay their taxes, that frees up time in the tax office for them to process the payments
Oh, I thought
also.
you were talking about the lockbox. You're talking about
I'm
the,
talking about everything in general.
well, there probably would be a slight reduction in people that are going to the front. We're trying to encourage people to go by mail and to go rather than in person. We find it easier for the citizen. The instigating of the People's Bank was more convenience for the city than relatively, because those monies still have to be reconciled and things like that. So it's not that much in the way of savings. It's more of a convenience for the citizens.
Are there any further questions for the city manager? Seeing none, thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Old business number 1, relative to the sale of 80 and 68 Broadway.
Entertain a motion to bring resolution forward. Alderman Gould. Second, please. Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Resolution passes. Vote is 7-0.
Citizen comment on resolutions?
As at this time, no one signed up ahead of time to speak on the resolutions, but we invite you to join us. Please step to the microphone. Be sure to state your name and your address. You each have 3 minutes, those who would like to comment on the new business resolutions. The time is yours. Anyone would like to address the council on the new business items? Anyone like to address the council on the new business items? Going. No one wants to speak on the new business resolutions. Very well, thank you. Declare that time closed. New business, please.
Number 1, relative to the approval of the budget for the Norwich Golf Course Authority.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Nash, second. Alderwoman Stephanie Burnham.
You'll get it, you'll get it.
Pardon me?
You'll get it.
Is there discussion? Yes, please.
I just have a quick
Alderman Burnham.
question, just a point of clarification. It says that we are authorizing to expend up to $1,041,000, et cetera, from revenues and other available funds. What are the other available funds?
Perhaps a member from the Golf Authority would be best to address that question. I see them sitting in the back.
Just a few. There's a few of them back there.
Mr. Whitty, would you please join us?
Good evening. My name is Charles Woody. I live at 79 West Town Street in Norwich. The primary revenue source for the Norwich Golf Course are the revenue generated by the golf course operation. There may be, on occasion, some donation or other funds unanticipated that come in that would be added to the total revenue for the year, but that's not known in advance and not something that we depend on, and usually is not of any significant sum.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, Resolution 1? Unanimous, the vote is 7-0.
Number 2, relative to appointments to the Harbor Management Commission.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Gould, second by Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, the vote is 7-0. 3, please.
Relative to an appointment to the Dangerous Buildings Board of Review.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Filbert, Alderwoman Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes 7-0 unanimously. 4, please.
Relative to an appointment to the School Building Committee, Kelly Middle School.
Motion to bring it forward. Alderwoman Burnham, and second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Filbert.
When is this going to be over and done with? I'm hoping because this has been a long time.
I would imagine that it will wrap up when all of the projects have been checked off on the project list, and it's also when and if, when, I hope not if, any reimbursement from the state is in fact received by the city, because some of that, I believe, is still pending as well.
I'm sure that Alderwoman Gould will keep us well appraised of the situation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there further question or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 7-0. 5, please.
Relative to appointments to the Public Parking Commission.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Gould, second by Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, vote is 7-0. 6, please.
Relative to appointments to the Recreation Advisory Committee.
Motion to bring it forward, please. So moved. Thank you. Alderman DeLucia, is there a second? Alderwoman Gould, is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's passed 7-0. 7, please. Motion?
That was 7.
6 or 7?
That was 7.
No, it wasn't.
No, 7
That was
is up.
6. That was 6. We're at
Sachem
7.
Fund forward.
Relative to an appointment to the Sachem Fund.
Alderman Nash, second. Alderman DeLucia, is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 7-0. 8, please.
Relative to an appointment to the Mohegan Park Improvement and Development Advisory Committee.
Motion to bring it forward, please. So moved. Alderman DeLucia, second. Alderwoman Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion unanimous, 7-0. 9, please.
Relative to appointments to the Monument Committee.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Filbert. Is there a second? Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 7-0, please. 10, please.
Relative to appointments to the Plan of Conservation and Development.
Motion forward, Alderman Nash. Is there a second? Alderwoman Burnham. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 7-0. 12, please.
11, relative to appointments to the Harbor Management Commission.
Motion to bring it forward. Alderman Nash, second. Alderwoman Filbert. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
I would just like to say how much I appreciate former Alderman Braddock and Martin and our current treasurer, Mike Walteri, for stepping forward and staying on this committee. I know my voice is going out, but we've got a lot to do. And I just want to thank them publicly because this is an important committee. We hope to get a lot of work done, make this the center of, or the centerpiece of what we do downtown. And I'm so pleased that these three gentlemen are willing to lend a hand. So I wanted to say that. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your kind words. Yes, Alderman Nash.
I also like to repeat what Alderman DeLucia said, and I just want to let people know how, we sit on these committees and these commissions, and a lot of times, a lot of the citizens don't understand what nights we're out, going to these events, going to these meetings. But I want to let everyone know that the day the webcam went online, Alderman, or former Alderman Martin texted me, called me, and was so excited. So people need to know how exciting it is and how much of an honor some of the people take their positions on these commissions and committees. That something as small as a webcam showing the boat launch sparks a fully grown adult male to text me like it was a brand new video game of a 12-year-old saying, I got the camera, did you see the camera? So I just want to thank everyone that sits on the boards and commissions for their time and efforts.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, 7-0.
Relative to reappointment of an alternate appointment to the Historic District Commission.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Gould, is there a second? Alderwoman Burnham, is there discussion? Alderwoman Filbert.
Just for clarification, Mr. Allen's appointment is only for a week and a half. Is this to fill a vacancy? Okay, thank you.
Is there further question or comment? For members of the public, the people being appointed here, or reappointed in this case, is Charles Scott Learned, and as was mentioned earlier, Mr. Robert Allen as an alternate member. All those in favor? Unanimous. Vote is 7-0.
Relative to the reappointment of Assistant Corporation Counsel.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Gould, second Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I will be voting against the resolution. I've discussed the reason with Corporation Counsel, and if I'm on the council in 2 years, I'll revisit at that time.
Thank you. Is there further comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion passes. Vote is 6-1. Alderman Browning voting no. 14, please.
Relative to the provision of legal services for the City of Norwich.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Nash, second Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion or question? None. All those in favor? Motion is unanimous, 7-0.
Relative to the reallocation of funding in the Capital Improvement Fund.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderman Nash, second. Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman Browning.
I'd like to make a motion to split the question and divide the East Great Plain Fire Department and the cost of lighting upgrades from the Taffville Fire Department section, which is in number 2.
You really don't need a motion. It's a matter of right if you want to split the question.
But does it have to be all of them, right? Not just those two specific?
I think he's only asked to split out just some portion of it. So I think it would be basically comes down to 3 at this point.
Yes.
Just for the record, could you repeat how you want this to be divided?
Certainly. I would like the East Great Plain Fire Department and the cost of lighting upgrades, which is in number 2, to be considered separately from the estimated cost of the Taffville Fire Station addition. Am I not formatting the?
Why don't you? Can you identify the
You would like to?
by number. In the left-hand column, you'll see the origin, the object number, if you identify it by number.
Okay,
maybe.
in that case, we can split them into three separate issues. 10218, East Great Plains, oh, you mean 88223, have that divided into one question. 88226, have that divided into a second, and 88247 divided into a third.
I'm totally confused. Yeah, he's talking the bottom.
Well, that's the substance. Is everyone clear?
No, I didn't think so.
Okay. Would anyone like to ask a question? Josh, perhaps you can assist us.
Okay, so if I understand Alderman Browning correctly, you want to split the question into the three sections, the first being $19,000 for the East Great Plain Fire Station fire escape improvements, and then second, the Taffel Fire Station, the local share of the fire station addition, and the third being the lighting upgrades for the Public Works
Yes.
garage facility. Okay. But I can stand by for questions if anyone has.
Please, yeah.
Okay.
Who would like to ask a question?
I believe that, Joe, did you have some questions about?
Excuse me. So I have questions, and I'm glad that the Taffel chief is here. I have questions about the Taffel Fire Station project.
Okay. Chief?
Excuse me, point of order. Don't we have to vote on the amendment first before we can have discussion?
Actually, there's not an amendment before us. Corporation Council stated that an amendment wasn't necessary, that it's the right of an alderman to ask for division.
I think the confusing thing is that this is divided in two sections. The top section identifies any number of organizations which money will be taken to make a total of $132,000 to be used for the three things on the bottom. Technically, you could alter number one, move money around or drop something from that, but I think the consensus is there's no objection to that sum taken from those sources. The question then becomes on the bottom, there are three entities or capital projects in which the money is going to be used, and you want to identify those, voting first, I think, on number one, then number two, then number three, is what I understand the question to be.
Yes.
So you may want to move, if the question is Taffel, if you're all in agreement on the first item, number one, you could get that out of the way. If you're not, and monies may be moved around, then I think you proceed as you're describing. But right now, the whole question is before the group, but to be decided independently on portions twos, number 1, 2, and 3.
Is everyone clear on that?
So if I'm understanding-
Reauthorization.
I'm sorry.
We're reauthorizing the prior use of these funds since the funds lapsed to repurpose them in the section 2. Go ahead, Alderman DeLucia.
Well, so if I am understanding it, what you're saying is that we should take up the question of reallocating the non-lapsed, the lapsed funds first.
No, I think take it whatever way makes the most sense to the council. If you need information before deciding on any one of these questions, you should get it now before you vote on anything. If item 1 is, everyone's in agreement on or something like that, you could dispose of it, but I don't know, it's the only way to test that is to put it up first with a motion to approve item 1 at $19,000. If you need information on item 2, though, before you vote on item 1, then you can ask the question before you vote.
So then can we question, can we debate, I should say, and discuss the Taffel Fire Station project before we make a decision on how we want to deal with this resolution.
No, I mean, I guess what I'm concerned about in terms of this is there's $132,000 being taken to be used for 3 other projects. If you intend to move money around among the 3 projects, then you'd proceed one way. If you think 132 isn't needed and you're reducing it, you could proceed another way, but that also implicates Section 1.
Okay, so depending on what the conversation is regarding the project in Taftville, the intention may be to refer this part of the project, the Taftville addition, just that piece, back to the Public Safety Committee. We may put forward a motion to do just that, which would not say we don't want to use the $107,000 for the project, or that we do, but that we'd like the Public Safety Committee to work with the chief on this project before we bring it to a vote.
It's already been completed.
Or you could do that as a motion now if you chose to, dealing with that section of item 2 of the 3 potential ones, or if you want to get more information before you make the decision, then I think you should ask whatever questions you think appropriate to get that information. And you can do it at this time if you choose.
Alderman DeLucia, it's your call. The chief is here if you have questions.
I'd say let's move forward and see where the dialogue between the council and the chief about this project takes us before we make a decision if that is permissible under the rules.
I think it would be.
It absolutely is. You may ask him any question you have. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Chief, thank you for being here tonight. I know that we spoke briefly about this project at the last public safety meeting, although that was kind of an informal, quick conversation. I appreciated you giving me the information that you had. When I took a little bit of a deeper look at the project, as I understand it, the real need here is to provide a sheltered storage area for the dive team boat and the vehicle that is going to pull it.
Yeah, it's going to store the dive truck, move some other equipment around. We're currently storing some other Swiftwater equipment off-site about 2 blocks away at a space that we're renting, a storage facility. It's also going to give us extra room for dive equipment storage and be able to rearrange some office space to create a proper records room, an IT room. We've been running into problems with things like that.
Okay. Thank you. You took me right where I wanted to go, because it caught me. I was just a little bit, I don't even want to say concerned. It just caught my attention that the project has a second story with an office suite.
It's just moving some office space around. Currently, we have 4 lieutenants. They're crammed into one office that's roughly 12 by 12 for them to do their job. We used to have a conference room. We no longer have that. Between the Girl Scout meetings, Crime Watch, and the other local organizations, civic organizations that use our meeting room, we've had to look for outside areas.
I understand where I'm coming from. The issue on my mind is the fact that on top of a very generous, what I believe very generous $250,000 grant from the state of Connecticut, which I know that you did a lot of work to make that happen, and I appreciate that very much. But we're looking at a total project cost of $357,000. So this $107,000 that's in this resolution, that's coming from the city at a time when we could. I'm sure we could use that money for other things if needed, or if this project didn't need it. So I was wondering if you could enlighten me just a little bit on on how the bid process went and how we arrived at this number, with my concern being more toward, is this all the money that this project's going to need?
Yes.
Is there not going to be, is there a high probability or a low probability that we'll have to chip in more money as the project reaches its conclusion?
Well, we've been working on obtaining funding for this project for the last 7 years. We started with conversations and going out to bid 2010, 2011. In December 2011, it went to the Public Safety Committee. They chose at that time to table it. At that time, the cost of the project was just over $100,000. That did not include any outside paving or anything else, which this project does not. We're just going to put down some crushed stone, and we should process gravel, and we should be good. We'll pursue other funding through other avenues to try to get that done, whether it's community development or go back to the state as part of the regional team. We started working with Senator Austin shortly after the June meeting in 2012, and it was in the State Bonding Commission hands for review and for them to determine whether it was a worthwhile project, right up until May of 2016. So because we had such a long gap between the plans, we had to review them, make sure they met the current standards, things along them lines, which there again we added an extra cost for having another architect review and obtain all of the permits and things along that line, to the point that we were at today. At the time, 250 was a good number. That was a number that we figured we would have been able to do everything with. I'll tell you, we were quite shocked when the prices came in as high as they did. That's where we're at. 257 for a shell was just a low bidder that didn't include heat or anything else for it.
So it's my understanding that you had a construction estimator also take a look at this?
I did have a person come in, an outside construction estimator come in and look at it. Because some of the plans were incomplete, he went on the high end of a lot of things as they were design build. So, the best heating system you could put, whatever else. He came in at 350, but that was with not having specific information on the heating system, which we've been working with Norwich Public Utilities to see if we can garner any refunds or credits for that. So he basically had a blank slate of a building now and didn't have a determination of how many outlets, what the heat was going to be, the AC units or any of that stuff. So he went off the high end of everything else. Actually came in at 354.
And then the bids came in higher than his
The low bid was 349. The highest bid was over 6.
So then why $107,000?
We've already obtained $250,000 for the State Bonding Commission for this project. Like I said, the state took $2,500 out for documentation fees and things along that line. We came in, like I said, the low bid is $349, correct, Josh? So that's what we did. Josh has got the numbers as far as what was taken by the state.
And this is certainly no reflection on you at all, Chief, but it threw me a curveball when we have information that the hazmat building that we just built behind fire headquarters costs $140,000, and this project is more than 2.5 times that. I just can't bend my brain around that.
You're looking at a metal prefab building versus a block building on the first floor with a wood top so that we can stay kind of aesthetically pleasing to the town of Tafel. If we go, there's always the danger with the current state of the state of Connecticut that we could lose this bond, we could lose this money. We could go out to rebid, redesign process, which again is going to cost more money out of that $247,000 that's left. I know the architect plans alone that we had done was just a little over $6,000, which is going to put us further, could possibly put us further into the hole to come back, and instead of asking for 107, we could be asking for more.
Is there, or a better way to ask the question, what is the jeopardy of losing this bond money?
I am not.
Is there a timeline or a deadline, or that money has to be spent by date?
No, there is not, but with the current state of the city of Connecticut's budget, I wouldn't count it as being too well.
And there may not be an answer to this
Excuse
question.
me, Mr. Mayor, point of order. I believe the rules of procedure say you get to talk twice.
He's asking questions, and he may do that. He's
So there's
not
no
making
limit?
a
There's
statement.
no limit?
Uh,
I wasn't aware of that. I
No,
apologize.
no, there's no limit. He has the right to ask questions, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess we're faced with the decision to either approve the $100,000 or the project doesn't move forward.
It does not move forward. It doesn't move forward without redesigning, going out to bid again, which could put us another year, year and a half out. As most of you know, we were out Saturday night for 9 hours in the cold. When we came back, because the truck had nowhere to go, all the equipment on it was frozen. So all of that stuff had to be brought indoors, including the truck, so we could thaw it out, and we had to leave another piece of apparatus outside in the cold.
I will make no argument that you do not need the space to store this equipment and the boat and the trailer and all of that stuff. I'm just concerned that, or let me better put it, I would rather that we built what we could with the grant that we have. That's all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Does anyone else like to ask a question? Yes, Alderman Browning.
What, if you do receive the $107,000 in addition to the $250,000, I've seen references in the contract to work that's going to be done by the Taftville Fire Department. Will you need any additional money after that to complete the building?
No, sir, not as we believe now.
Thank you. Is there any other questions while we have the chief here? Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone have questions of Josh here on the council? Thank you. Just for the record, the request originally was that we take each of these items separately. So I will be asking for 3 separate motions on each of the items. And in that, I'm making an assumption that the reallocation of funds on the non-lapse budgets is not in question. It's the reuse of those funds that is what is in question.
That is correct.
Thank you. Then I'd ask for a motion concerning our Origin 10218, which is the $19,000 reallocation to East Great Plains Fire Station for fire escape improvements.
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Philbrick, second by Alderman Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Is unanimous. This is 7-0. I now ask for a resolution concerning Origin 10218, which is a dealing with the Taftville Fire Station, which would be considered a local share with the state's match. Alderman Nash, second Alderman Gould. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderman DeLucia.
So, I support our entire fire service and our entire public safety complex, and I actually lived not far from the Taftville Fire Station. My son played Little League behind the station. It's part of the fabric of me and of this community. I'm a little concerned that I watched this council in one of its November meetings not fill or not to turn our rec director into a full-time position, not fill positions, two other positions that were adjustments to the budget to save $72,000. And yet we have $107,000 here available to the city in the same way. And we're spending it. Not that the expense isn't worthy, but again, it's the idea of we got a grant, we should maximize that grant and build what we can to suit the need, not the needs and the wants of everybody in the community. So I'm struggling with this, and Chief, as much as I support you and support your operation, I'd rather see this $107,000 go back into the general fund.
Any further comments? Alderwoman Gould?
Josh, I'm sorry, I should have asked this question before. This money is coming out of the Capital Improvement Fund, is that correct?
Correct.
And this money needs to be spent, it has to be spent.
On capital improvements.
On capital improvements, so it cannot go back into the general fund.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Alderman Filbert, Gould, Nash, Nystrom. Those opposed? Alderman Browning, Alderwoman Burnham, and Alderman DeLucia. The motion passes 4-3. Entertain a motion on Origin 10-218, cost of lighting upgrades at the Public Works Garage facility on Asylum Street. Alderman Filbert, second by Alderwoman Gould. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0.
Relative to an expression to support the Office of the State of Connecticut, DCF remaining downtown.
Motion to bring it forward, please. Alderwoman Gould, second by Alderman Nash. Is there discussion? Yes, Alderwoman Burnham.
While I support the sentiment of this resolution and completely understand where it's coming from, I'm just missing a little bit of information. And I have 2 points, and I'll keep it to my 2. Do we have any background as to why DCF might want to move? Is the building sufficient to support their facilities and the needs to be able to provide their services? There doesn't seem to be background on that.
I can answer to the best of my knowledge on the background. It's my understanding that the commissioner is looking to, I'll use the term, homogenize their offices across the state. I think consolidation may be part of the issue. I can tell you that the site that they're looking at in our industrial park is a building that was in fact constructed for purposes of manufacturing and providing products. I brought this forward personally because I believe it's a misuse of a building in our industrial park to do this. I think it isolates the agency from other service agencies that they collaborate with in our downtown, whether they be Madonna Place or the courthouse, which is right across the street, or other services that are there. I think it isolates the clients in a severe way. Many of the clients that they serve do not have vehicles. While I cannot tell you there isn't bus service to the industrial park, I can tell you it is very limited, and the ability to keep appointments, I think, will suffer greatly. Those are some of the issues that I have looked at in the discussions. I'm also greatly concerned about the loss of feet on the street. We all hear about that concept. We have a number of wonderful restaurants downtown. We just authorized a resolution earlier tonight to help bring a new Endeavor at the former Human Services Office at 80 Broadway. We need people downtown. We need employees downtown. It does nothing for the city of Norwich except cause disruption in service to those clients. I think it causes a loss of revenue greatly.
No, yeah, no, I absolutely support.
That's the background that I can share with you. But please, the floor is still yours.
Yeah, no, and I just didn't know if we had any concrete conversations with DCF as to the facility, but that's, obviously, we don't have all that information. And then...
I can share more.
Huh?
I can share more.
Oh, yeah, no. It was just, I didn't have that here, and so that was really helpful. To my knowledge, our state senator and representative have been supporting this effort to keep DCF downtown, going back to last August.
That is correct, and I can tell you that I met with them myself, as did Alderman Nash this past week, towards that goal.
Okay. So we're asking for their continued support of this.
We have their continued support.
Yes.
Yes, it is solid.
Great.
Yes. Is there further question? Yes, Alderman Brown.
This, I actually have a comment. Are we we're in the discussion period, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I think I will reluctantly support this. I do not think that that building, the Shannon building, given that it's, a vertical building, with multiple floors, is going to be that easily filled. I do happen to be somewhat cynical about what's happened with our business park, in the sense that we filled it up with everything except businesses over time, and that's kind of multiple people over decades. But I do agree with the sentiment that it would be nice to at least keep a government agency out of that and have an actual business go there. I'm not sure this resolution will be particularly effective. I know how badly the state is hurting, and if they can achieve a savings, our resolution may not do much. I would also suggest for future that when someone attaches an economic impact statement, that at least it be sourced to who compiled this information, because otherwise it's kind of hard to judge the reliability of the information. And that's all I have.
Thank you. The source of this economic impact is the Norwich Community Development Corporation. They were asked to do an analysis of what kinds of revenue are in fact generated by their presence. And it lists the subjects for which the revenue, or who receives it and so forth, including the city. But it was NCDC who provided this. And I don't know why it's like this. The copy I have in my office has a complete header, where it came from. I don't know why it was copied this way. But I apologize for that. I didn't know.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimous. The vote is 7-0.
I hereby move, pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 1-200 subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposition of real estate or interests in real estate when publicly regarded. The proposed acquisition or disposition would cause a likelihood of an increased price to acquire and a diminished price to dispose of the property. To view feasibility, evaluations, and reports made for the city of Norwich regarding such property, and to review information given the city in confidence, not required to be disclosed by law. City Manager John Salamone, Comptroller Josh Pothier, Planner Deanna Rhodes, Corporation Counsel Michael Driscoll shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of the City Council. I hereby further move, pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-200 subsection 6, that the members of the Norwich City Council continue in executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy and negotiations with respect to collective bargaining. The following shall be asked to participate during all or portions of this executive session at the request of Bridget Marks, Director of Human Services, Josh Pothier, Comptroller, Michael Driscoll, Corporation Counselor, Tim Ryer, Senior Vice President and Consulting Actuary with Hooker and Halcomb, actuarial consultants and financial advisors.
Thank you. Is there a second? Alderman Nash. All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. 319.